Back with a few more defensive use of a firearm incidents. These all took place from March 14th to March 17th. The first one happened in St. Paul, Minnesota. The victim was unharmed and the suspect was injured. Man shot by security guard during exchange of gunfire. All I got is a Twitter feed on this one. Okay, so the officers ran across this guy who had been shot in the arm. He had been shot twice in the arm. They put a tourniquet on his arm, and they didn't see any other injuries on him. There was a firearm recovered from him that had been previously reported stolen out of Chicago. The man suddenly began shooting towards the security officer after he was kicked out of the store, according to the report from the police. The security guard then returned fire, and the suspect went to his vehicle and fled. He was found a short time later by police. So that's something that's actually making the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul bad, is there's a lot of links now, and maybe they've always been there, to Chicago. And you'll find people committing crimes in St. Paul or Minneapolis that are located in Chicago. Like they come to Minneapolis and St. Paul, they shoot somebody and kill somebody, and then they go back to Chicago. So it doesn't say in this where this suspect was from, if he was from St. Paul or if he was from Chicago, but his gun was stolen in Chicago. So the next one, Thurston, Oregon. The victim was unharmed, and we have two suspects that were arrested, 33-year-old Gregory Robinson and 24-year-old Christopher Alexander. And this was during an armed robbery. Springfield police arrested two armed men Friday morning who both suffered multiple gunshot wounds during an attempted home invasion. Here we go. Those two men allegedly forced their way inside a home, breaking in the front door. Police said the victim, armed with his own weapon, fired multiple rounds at both suspects. Both suspects fled in a vehicle and were quickly located and arrested by patrol officers and treated at the hospital for gunshot wounds. Authorities said once they are released from the hospital, they will be charged with first-degree robbery, first-degree burglary, and unlawful use of a weapon. Alexander will additionally face a charge of unlawful possession of body armor. So that guy had body armor on. So that's another home invasion that was stopped by a victim that had their own gun. Okay, Huntsville, Alabama. The victim was unharmed and the suspect was killed. It was 25-year-old Montera Gurley, and this was during a carjacking at a gas station. A spokesperson for the Huntsville police identified the person who was killed in a shooting on Friday. The Huntsville Police Department responded to a shooting call at 6:20 a.m. on March 17th. Investigators with the HPD Major Crimes Unit said that Montera Gurley attempted to steal a man's car after entering the business. The owner of the car confronted Gurley and asked him to exit the vehicle. Investigators say Gurley attempted to leave the scene in the vehicle. The owner of the vehicle fired his weapon at Gurley in an attempt to stop the car. Gurley was transported to the hospital, where he was later pronounced dead. So this is Alabama. The officers of the Madison County District Attorney has determined no charges will be filed at this time after reviewing the case. Okay, so this happened in Alabama. The guy was stealing his car, and he fired in an attempt to stop the guy from stealing his car. In some states, if you do that, you're going to have murder charges filed. But in Alabama, you can apparently do that. Okay, Bradenton, Florida. The victim was unharmed. He was 63 years old. The suspect was a 39-year-old male, and he was injured. Attempted armed robbery inside a store. Let's see, we got a suspect was shot in an attempted robbery at a Bradenton mini mart. Police say a struggle ensued during the attempted robbery. During the struggle, one of the two suspects was shot by someone else inside the store. Both suspects then left the scene in a vehicle, but they pulled over shortly after because of the injuries to the suspect who was shot. Bradenton police say the suspect was rushed to the hospital and the other was taken into custody. So it doesn't say if it was a person in the store, like an innocent bystander who ended up shooting at these guys, or if it was the clerk working at the store. But somebody with a gun stopped an armed robbery. That was in Florida. Okay, on to Philadelphia, where a 26-year-old victim was unharmed and the armed robbery suspect, who was 18 years old, was injured. He was trying to steal a vehicle. An 18-year-old suspect was shot multiple times while trying to steal a car in Philadelphia. Happened around 3:30 p.m. Police say the 18-year-old and another suspect were in the process of stealing a Toyota Corolla, but the 26-year-old owner of the vehicle came outside. That's when a gun battle erupted on the residential street. The 18-year-old was shot 4 times and tried to run away. Wow. He made it up the block before collapsing to the pavement. Found a handgun on him. The suspect was taken to Jefferson Hospital and placed in critical condition. Police say the other suspect was able to take off in the Toyota Corolla, but crashed the vehicle into a nearby Jeep during the escape. He didn't want to speak on camera, but a neighbor didn't want to speak on camera, but said bullets flew past his head as he was working in his office, the owner of the Jeep. Wow, so that's another one that people are firing. Where was this one at again? This one I think was, this one was in Philly. People are shooting at people while they're stealing their cars, but these kids, they still keep doing it. And they're going to keep doing it until more of that happens or until they end up, taken out by these guys. Okay, so Moreno Valley, California. Victim injured. And you got 3 suspects. One was killed. Robert Valdez, he was 34 years old. Alex Galvin, he was 21. He was arrested and he wasn't hurt at all. And Braceria Santa Cruz was 21, and he wasn't injured at all either, but he was arrested. Shots exchanged between robber and victim. 2 suspects in a shooting and robbery in Moreno Valley were arrested, and a 3rd suspect was killed. The shooting was reported around 11:30 p.m. When deputies arrived, they located a dead man with gunshot wounds. Evidence at the crime scene led deputies to an apartment where they found a second man suffering from gunshot wounds. EMS took him to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Authorities found that the shooting occurred during a robbery in which the dead man allegedly was one of 3 suspects. Valdez was shot by the robbery victim, who was also shot during the incident. Galvin was detained during a traffic stop. Both suspects were arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder. So, more of these armed robberies that are leading to the suspects getting killed by the people they're robbing. Phoenix, Arizona. The victim, on this one, the victim was killed. Manuel Hinojos, who's 26 years old. And the suspect was a teen, and he was injured and arrested. And this was during a home invasion. 3 teenagers have been arrested for a shooting that happened Tuesday morning, leaving a man dead in a West Phoenix neighborhood. On March 14th, police responded to a shooting around 1:30 a.m. At the house, they found a man identified as 26-year-old Manuel Hinojos and a teenage male suffering from an apparent gunshot. Both were taken to the local hospital. Hinojos did not survive his injuries. The teen survived, but his current condition is unknown. Officers, while at the scene, located and arrested 1 teenage male. Homicide detectives say 3 teenage males were allegedly robbing the house when Hinojos, armed with a firearm, confronted them. 2 teens ran away, but a 3rd reportedly exchanged gunfire with Hinojos. The teen who allegedly shot at Hinojos was taken to the hospital and arrested after receiving medical treatment. The final teen was eventually found and arrested. All three have been booked into juvenile corrections. So this is the risk you take when you try to defend yourself, because these guys all have guns. So if you're going to shoot, in this instance, two of them, the guy pulled out a gun and two of them ran, but one stayed and engaged in a shootout with them. And that's all it took. And this guy is no longer with us. Maybe this kid would have shot him anyway. So he defended himself and tried to defend his property. We don't know. But that's a risk you take when you do the defensive use, when you try to defend yourself with a gun, is you risk escalating the situation. Who knows? It may have ended the same way. Either way, who knows? But if the criminal does not fear the police, a judge, or prison, he must be taught to fear his victims.